Hello, I'm Kyle Perkins here with the Keep It Rolling podcast. I'm here with Joey Deal.
Hello.
And David Heineman.
Heineman.
What's going on? Yeah, we were talking all week.
He-Man better.
Yeah. Awesome. So this is our first actual guest, we would say.
Like a true guest.
Yeah, first person we actually have never had much of an interaction with. So, David, nice to meet you.
You as well. Appreciate you guys having me out.
Yeah, we got a lot to learn about you. So, how's your training been going lately? We heard you're doing the Worlds coming up.
It's been good.
When is that? Next week? 2 weeks?
2 weeks.
Nice.
Yeah. So
Vegas?
I got like one more. Yeah, Vegas. I got one more week of training. Then we'll kind of taper for a couple days, and then we fly out Wednesday. I'm pretty sure I compete Thursday.
Nice.
Yeah. So
Awesome, man.
Should be good. Feel good.
Is that your first time as a black belt?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So I was kind of like, I got my black belt last year. I hadn't done a tournament yet. I've been kind of itching to do it, but also not. And I didn't feel like doing any of the, Chicago Opens and everything, because every time I've looked at them, it's been like one or two guys, and like half of it's my team. So
Yeah.
it's like I'm not really going to spend the money to do it. I don't have the time with work to train for like the ADCC Opens and everything, which maybe one of these days
We'll convince you.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, trust me. I was definitely not this recent trials, but the one prior I had started to kind of prep for.
Nice.
I was a brown belt at the time, and then work just got
For the West Coast ones?
East Coast. Yeah. So
2
what was
years
that?
ago.
2020 or 2021?
That was our first one.
Yeah, 2021. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was gonna go for those, and then work just got out of hand, and I just couldn't fully commit to training. But I had like a nice 2-month window where we didn't have anything going on. Work's kind of tapered off a bit, which is good. Or at least it's just manageable. And I told my wife, I'm like, we're going to go for it. I'm like, this could be my last one for a while. So I'm like, we're going to pull out all the stops for it.
Yeah, I can see you working really hard for it. Strength and conditioning. I see your
hired
videos.
Jimmy House.
Yeah,
the
yeah,
dude's
I know
an
him.
animal. And he's
a monster, huh?
Dude, he's insane. And I've never tracked workouts. I've never followed a workout plan. I just, one that shows up and it's like, I'm going to do chest today. I'm going to do shoulders today, whatever.
Me and Kyle.
Picking stuff up.
So I was like,
We're trying our best.
I'm going to, whether or not this goes my plan at Worlds, we'll see. But I was like, at least I know I did everything leading into it. So the workouts, I feel great. Rolling's been great. We've kind of, he's been awesome, because it's like, if I injure my hamstring or something, I just shoot him a quick message. He makes adjustments, and
he's great. I remember his video. Do you know who this guy is?
No, that's really cool though, to have someone who can really interact
This
with as a
guy,
strength and
he's like
conditioning coach.
he's a bodybuilder
He's
type.
a bodybuilder, but he's also black belt in
But he's
jiu-jitsu.
black belt in jiu-jitsu, but he's massive. There's a video of him online of him getting his leg destroyed.
Yeah,
I'm sure you've seen that. His knee just completely wrecked.
And 6 different ways.
And then watching him recover. No surgery. And the way that he
That's
recovered.
amazing.
Yeah, it was really cool.
So I told him, I said, I'm doing medium heavy, and I was like, I'm not cutting weight. I'm walking in weight class. I'm doing masters.
What is that? What weight?
188.
188.
So I've stayed between 185 and 187 for 7 weeks straight.
Nice.
And I told him, I was like,
It's the best way to do it.
Oh yeah. And I was like, I want build the strength a little bit, and I said I want to increase kind of like dexterity, mobility a little bit. And he's been having me do some stuff with my knees that he's been doing, and my knees have never felt better.
That's awesome.
So I'm like,
there's almost a new resurgence with that knees over toes guy of all this knee health. I think you were really into a while ago, Joey. But yeah. So
well, I'm pretty sure that he's FRC certified and all that stuff. That's what I did.
You're saying he stole it?
No, I'm saying I'm pretty sure that he's got a good functional mobility and background instead of just a bodybuilder.
Correct.
Because no offense to just bodybuilders, but you can definitely run into a problem if you just for jiu-jitsu. If you just go to let's just say you're run of a mill, a really high level bodybuilder,
they're not going to know.
It's not going to be the same.
And I debated that, because I got you go to Lifetime, why don't you just ask one of those trainers? I'm like, they have
no idea what is required for our body.
Yeah. Yeah, and the way he's building in pauses, the way he's been changing up the reps. I mean, we've done the same exercises for 7 weeks, and it sucks every week.
That's
because the weight changes. It's like, oh, how is this on a scale of 1 to 10? I'm like, it felt pretty good. It's like, awesome, let's double the weight. I'm like, well, all right.
That wasn't what I wanted.
Not what I thought.
Good.
Yeah.
So I feel
feeling great,
I feel good. So I could not speak higher of the man. He knows what he's talking about.
Cool.
Very cool.
We'll shout him out.
Yeah, awesome. So what do you do for work? You said your work's been tapering off?
I work in food manufacturing. So we manufacture salad dressings and sauces. So I'm fifth generation. It's been in my family for a long, long time. So I'm the only one of all my siblings that is in the business now. Right now, it's just currently my dad and I. I've got 2 uncles that are kind of on their way out. So currently it's just my dad and I, and I love it.
That's really cool.
So,
really cool. Taking over the family business.
So that's my daily days, and then training, teaching, everything else kind of comes.
Because you seem like you have a pretty big following when it comes to martial arts.
Well, and that kind of took off during COVID, so I'm still trying to kind of navigate where that fits with.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to talk to you about that more because I can tell it's like you know what you're doing. You know, we're thinking about
and error.
Yeah, I mean, what's your background when it comes to like social media and all that?
Nothing.
Like, so you just made this
trial and error.
Yeah,
trial and error.
And you don't have anyone work with you when it comes to like editing.
Nope. I have my 2 students that you see in all the videos because we were just doing this stuff during COVID to kind of like just mess around, and it kind of started gaining some traction. And so I've kept it with those 2 guys. I've got the one brother that just holds the camera most of the time. I've got the other brother that's the one that I'm beating up in every video. And then, you know, I call them like my little board of directors. So I'll send them ideas or like something that I'm thinking about. They get to deal with me being just anal and picky about every little detail. I was like, hey, we're going to film this again. And, you know, we've just kind of like.
But you got a really good personality for online content. It's like you have good delivery. I don't know if you watch it.
Yeah, no, I was watching a bunch of them.
It's a hit or miss. Like it depends on, like I have a chunk of stuff that I want to do that's a little bit more discussion based, and I just suck at filming those.
Yeah.
Like I just can't sit there and like go to camera mode. When we're doing like the shorts and stuff like that, it's fine. I've had the opportunity to work with some big time YouTubers. And so like when I'm with them, obviously they do that for a living, so they're able to kind of pull it out of me. But when I'm with them, it's just so natural.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to get to that natural point.
I'm impressed with it always because I just know what it takes for that because I've done videos and stuff and I know it's difficult sometimes.
Yeah, it can be like some days I'm on, some days I'm on, and then others I look at it and like it pisses me off because there's times where I'm like I haven't posted something in a minute. Let's just put this out there. I'm not happy with it, and it takes off. And then I put all this effort into something else.
Nothing. Yeah,
and
no one watches
like,
it.
It just flops. I'm like, well, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Well, and it's weird. Like you might be on in the video, but then like the video editing, you're struggling with a little bit, or the overlay. A little, it's just always these tons of layers to it.
My biggest thing is like I'll do it, and then like they're like, yeah, that looked pretty good, and then I'll sit there and be like, I should have mentioned like 4 other things.
Let's do it again.
Let's do it again. Yeah. And they're like, really? I'm like, yeah, let's just shut up. Let's just do it again. So they're used to it. They'll give me crap. And it just depends. Like we joke around because like we'll show up, we'll film and we'll just waste each other's time because we're just bantering and joking and blah, blah, blah. But if I bring like you in to film, like we'll crank stuff out left and right because I don't want to waste your time.
Yeah.
But like, and as much as we say, it's like,
hopefully it's fun and they enjoy it.
It's a blast, but we give each other crap all the time.
So it's like a cool project, right?
So it's fun. And again, like they've been with me. They've been students of mine since they were like 5 or 6. So I've known them their entire lives. Good kids. They're 2 years into now training jiu-jitsu and they love it. So that was like the other thing is like we were trying to film this stuff and they had like no idea what to do for the movements. I'm like trying to like walk them through stuff and I was like, I'm just gonna start teaching jiu-jitsu now.
Yeah.
So that you guys can like figure this stuff out.
Right. Yeah. Because they never did
jiu-jitsu.
No.
Yeah. And that was the thing is like part of it was like
how's their jiu-jitsu now?
You know what? Pretty solid.
Are they rolling? Are they?
Yeah, they're rolling. I got most of my group is white belts, and out of these 2, they're actually both pretty technical. Nice. I got one kid that's a little bit lengthier, or Cash, who's in the videos, who you actually see has a mean triangle game, and so he's kind of. And I've shoved him into New Breed a bit. I've brought him to Maximus a bit. I brought him down to Kentucky. He's worked with Eli Knight, so I've kind of put him around different people and I just kind of like, yep, here you go. And he doesn't shy away from it. He's definitely like, give him another year or 2. And once he starts kind of hitting that blue belt level, he's
that's so good for kids that travel and be able to like go with other people and get a diverse, group of training partners and stuff.
And I try. Really cool. My coaches did the same to me. So I'm just trying like, hey, he's like, maybe I'm like, just shut up. Let's go train. Like, go figure it out. And I'll look at him like halfway through. I'm like, how you doing? He's like, it sucks. I'm like, yeah, it's good. All right, keep it going. Yeah,
makes him more and more comfortable with that situation.
Which is good though, because then he brings it back. I mean, he competed at one of the most recent grass building industries. I think I saw you guys at, and took 3rd for his first tournament, and like phenomenal performance all around. Like did extremely well and handled the pressure and everything super well.
I think that's definitely that's the kick in the butt to kind of get people, really learning too, is have them do a tournament.
100%.
Even if
it was good. Well, and I had a few guys that were getting like real frustrated. I'm like, dude, you've been training for 2 months.
Yeah.
Like, relax. I'm like, don't worry about it. But I was like, now you know what it feels like at this
under stress, under pressure,
real
I see
pressure.
a big change in people after they compete. The
all,
way they train,
I had 8 or 9 guys compete that day. They all came back, and I think good. I only had I had a chunk that podiumed. Nobody won,
and these are all people who train at your house.
Yeah,
okay.
and
that's
so
awesome.
they all came back, and
that's amazing. That's really cool.
Kicked it into gear, and I was like, good because before it was a spaz. So that kind of paid off to an extent at the tournament because they could just rip on the pressure. But now it's like they got the pressure and now they're getting the technique down.
Nice.
And I mean, I've said this all the time with people that start training now. I'm like, I mean, shit, when we all started training, we didn't have access to any of these videos. And like these kids are coming in and like, can you show me how to do this stroke? I'm like, where are you seeing this stuff? Like, I saw it on TikTok or I saw it. I want to try it. I'm like, I don't even know what this is.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Don't ask me and don't show me.
They're coming
I
in,
don't
like,
want to see the video.
I was watching this guy do this. I was like, well, show me the video and I'll study it and then But I'm like, it's awesome to see them like have this opportunity, or anyone that's starting to train now, like they have the ability to see this stuff that we're like now just learning. It's like we've been black belts or we've been training for 10 plus years. And it's like, I've never even heard of this move.
Yeah, I mean, information's out there. There's no hiding it.
Yeah. So it's crazy to see the skill jump.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we were just saying at the last ADCC trials we were at. It was, multiple children winning, 16 years old, 17, 18 years old.
I was watching the trials and stuff, and it's like, I don't even know what belt these dudes are, and they just look like they've been doing this their entire life. It's beautiful.
It makes the idea of belts and stuff almost like kind of weird at some point,
It's almost irrelevant at sometimes.
Yeah.
And
most
when
you
of
have
those
a
guys,
blue belt who's taking first place, a purple belt, none of it matters.
The beautiful part is like none of those guys care.
No.
Yeah.
They don't care what belt they are. They're just like, oh, I'm just learning this stuff.
Which
like,
I love it.
Yeah, that's like that to me is like the beauty of it.
Well, tell us about your martial arts background a little bit, because jiu-jitsu is not your first.
No, jiu-jitsu.
Martial
So
art.
I started out karate, did that for a few years, switched to another school that was like taekwondo focused, but not sport. Our instructor was a former military who was very heavily involved with law enforcement, so our self-defense program from that was very street oriented. So I trained with him for about 25 years.
Okay. So that's why a lot of your online content is all self-defense.
Started like that kind of is where that whole idea originated. I did like the Hapkido system and everything. He was probably like my first, well, obviously he was my first instructor, but he was like the biggest instructor I had that pushed me to train outside of Taekwondo. And so like when I went to school, I was like, hey, do you know any other Taekwondo schools out there? He's like, yeah, I do. He's like, but I want you to do something different. I want you to, he's like, you're going somewhere, learn something new, and then come back and show everybody. So I took up boxing. They didn't have jiu-jitsu. It was in Des Moines, so they didn't have any grappling at the time. There was no jiu-jitsu or anything when I went to college out there.
And I love that attitude too about exploring other things. So
it's very interesting to hear from like
a lot of teachers say don't do stuff.
Yeah,
no. He's like, I know you're going to come back. He's like, but there's stuff that and he was very like, he wouldn't tell every student, but he told the ones that he knew was kind of just locked in and that we weren't going anywhere. He's like, go learn something, bring it back, teach us, show us, start incorporating it, because if people start seeing like, oh wow, David's hands have gone a lot faster. What are you doing? And is this going to stir the learning process? So I took up boxing. I took up Thai boxing. I was doing wrestling for a bit. And then after college, so 2013 is when I started jiu-jitsu with Mike. Nice. I just didn't want to do it in between, like coming home from school, going back to school, coming home from school. So I took it up as soon as I graduated, literally just signed up for jiu-jitsu with him. And he already knew I was going to do it. And so I kind of would like go through phases where I would focus most of my training on striking. I'd focus most of my training on grappling. And so obviously when I did jiu-jitsu, that's kind of been like the primary, and it still is like one of my main training programs, but I've also kind of started to kind of backpedal a little bit and just kind of go back to focusing on striking or something a little bit more. And then during COVID is actually when I started meeting up with all these huge self-defense guys that we met, through social media and everything, just because I knew self-defense. I had a lot of stuff in my head. I didn't know how to get a lot of it out because it's stuff that I would see like, oh, well, boxing would help me with this. Jiu-jitsu would help me with this. And I just didn't know how to like present it. And so I started training with these guys who that's all they do. And, they're all black belts in jiu-jitsu, which is awesome. They've all been around the fighting world. So a lot of like, it was kind of like that reassurance of like what I had in my head actually was
confirmed.
And then, that being said, like there's still tons to learn. And so I met up with, Aaron Giannetti, Ryan Hoover, Craig Douglas, all these guys that are like, if you want weapon defense, if you want gun retention, if you want this, like these are the guys you go to. And they're like very well known in the world of self-defense. And they're probably like the top 5 instructors that I've now become good friends with. And so like for the past few years, I'm calling them, they're calling me, I'm going to teach with them or train with them and vice versa.
That's a great network.
Yeah. So it like really kind of like sparked just the whole kind of really kind of refueled my passion for self-defense, because for a while I kind of backed off, and I was more so just focused on
especially
sport.
when you start doing competitions, you start, it's hard.
And then I started teaching it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
like
you can't balance everything.
No,
you got to kind of pick a lane sometimes.
And
that was the thing,
you got the your real job too.
Right. Well, and so like when I was teaching just kind of like self-defense classes, because the studio that like Cash and my guys all trained at kind of had some issues during COVID, and so they're like, hey, can we come and just train Taekwondo with you? Which again, I had retired technically from it, so I was like, yeah, I'm like, if you want me to come and help you with stuff, like just shoot on over. And it just literally started with like 5 of us in the house, and then it just kind of progressed. And then it got to the point where they're like, can you show us something else? Like, we're just kind of done with this stuff. Can you show us jiu-jitsu? And so like I started kind of adding that in there. We started kind of gaining some more traction. Like,
well, did you guys do lots of sparring? Or,
kind of, but again, like I was kind of giving them private lessons to help them, in addition to like their classes at the studio that I was no longer a part of, because they were getting ready to promote, and because of COVID, they were kind of like on and off with in-person training. And I was like, yeah, come on over. We'll work on your stuff.
It's a classic story for COVID.
That happened for a lot of people. Yeah.
Everyone was working out in someone's basement.
Yeah, pretty much.
You had to find a place.
Like we know, because like
shout out to Timbo's basement.
Yeah, you just never knew when there was going to be another like outbreak, or like we're closing for another week.
As soon as my wife was like okay with the fact, I was like, hey, can we have some people over to roll?
Right.
Like I just miss training.
Yeah,
and she's like, that's like, once she gave me the okay, it just kind of slowly brought in some people. And then the moment I said, hey, we're going to do jiu-jitsu and boxing and Thai boxing and all that, like I'm just going to start kind of running classes a couple days a week at the house, it just kind of snowballed, and we've picked up a good sized group now. And so, yeah, like I'll still kind of like, I have a lot of cops that train with me, and they come for the self-defense aspect. And so like I'm able to still teach self-defense in my classes, just not necessarily directly. And then if I'm doing self-defense, I'm either running seminars or I'm traveling for seminars. So I'm not running like weekly self-defense classes. But it's just been nice working. So like most of my content online is self-defense, because that's my way of teaching it on a regular basis. And then I can play around with it in class. And it's just opened up a ton of doors.
You have your niche for it, which is really great. And the fact that you have some competitive background gives you a lot of credibility to a lot of people, especially when it comes to, self-defense. Like,
right.
That seems to be the field, though. Is there,
because I'd love to talk
there's
about
any
some
sort of
shitty ones.
self-defense schools?
Say that again.
Like you just said, you do self-defense seminars, and it seems like that seems to be the model for more self-defense style stuff. I would think the next level of like a full-time self-defense school tends to be just something like this, just a full martial arts school. Would you agree with that, or like I don't?
Yeah. The problem that I have with that though is a lot of the people that are running that stuff for self-defense don't have self-defense backgrounds.
Okay.
They're just like, hey, I'm a black belt in this. I've been doing this my entire life. I'm gonna teach this for self-defense. Which again, I will always hats off to anyone that's teaching self-defense. There is a time and a place for everything. And when I'm seeing, and trust me, we talk about this all the time with like high-level black belts that I see teaching. Again, you have to understand the context. I do a lot with like sex crimes. I work a lot with domestic and sexual crimes, and working with males, females that have been assaulted or whatever. So I have to understand kind of like the context that I'm working with. They're under those types of circumstances are not going to know how to do a triangle choke from guard. So why am I going to teach that? I'm going to teach you how to make space. I'm going to teach you how to recover back to your feet. Like that's where the most of your focus is going to be. Not, well, here's how you do an armbar from mount. Here's how you do a triangle. And so it's like I
check out this cool back escape.
You can't just like cut and paste something.
Correct. Like I'm telling you, the
model a lot of people take.
99% of the jiu-jitsu will work phenomenal in a self-defense situation. But again, there's context, and you have to understand. And again, like people just kind of get so tunnel vision on like, well, this works in real fights because we can do it in training. It's like, well, there's a lot of other variables that like, oh yeah, this could happen. It's like, yeah, but you still have to kind of acknowledge it. And the beautiful part of training with some of these guys, like Craig Douglas puts on what he calls like his evolution. So he'll put you through like it's his courses. I took my dad to one because when we got our concealed carry, I'm like, you're going to learn what it feels like to not have access to your gun.
Like a stress test.
I was like, yeah. I'm like, and it's a 2-day class, 10 to 12 hours each day.
Okay.
And at the end of each day, it's a full-on evolution, full contact.
Love it.
Like you put on heavy headgear and gloves, and it's like, hey, this dude's about to stab you. Deal with the situation. And he's going to give you like the circumstances, like, hey, let's just assume like you're going to try to de-escalate it, but it's not going to work. So like he's going to give
always been the biggest, my biggest problem with a lot of the self-defense gurus that you watch is that there is no bridge between their basically their static drilling,
right,
and what they believe would work in a street situation.
Yeah.
And there is no live scenario for them. But you see stuff like that where I've watched people and I've seen some really, really effective methods for them to train these ideas.
Right.
Right. That's just the biggest gap that I see.
And the gap's not that big. Like the actual gap is pretty small. It's just like not. And again, like when I watch these other guys who are like, there's a chunk of guy. Craig's like second in command is a black belt from Atos.
Yeah.
Like, he's a very reputable black belt,
Right.
and you'll never see him using like 90% of the sport-based jiu-jitsu stuff
because it's not necessary.
No, and he's got military experience, he's got SWAT experience, law enforcement, and high-level
And I
competitive
think
experience.
It says a lot about like what training jiu-jitsu can do for you, more than the
Yes.
techniques, but training jiu-jitsu for your body.
And that's the thing.
for
It's
your-
like everything you need, and I'll just say this for anyone that's like learning jiu-jitsu for self-defense. Anything you need for self-defense from jiu-jitsu, you will learn in your first year.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to be good at it, but you will be exposed to it in your first year. Anything past that is just bettering those techniques or just learning fancy stuff.
yeah,
I
and,
like
and
that a
learning
lot.
it against another person who knows
Correct.
jiu-jitsu.
But like
so
your
now we're just playing a game.
sweeps,
Yeah.
controlling on top, getting on top. Like
It's very general, very
that's
simple.
It.
Yeah.
And then like some submissions. Like you don't need like if you can apply chokes from different positions.
Yeah, you really
Yeah.
don't need too many
That'll save
submissions.
That'll save you in a lot of different
Yeah.
places.
Yeah,
know?
you
I
don't need 50 different fancy There's no reason for that.
No.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is that I see is a lot of people who don't know how to throw punches,
Right.
who train only jiu-jitsu, who think that they can handle someone that knows how to throw punches. Like, sure, you can.
It sounds easy in theory to
Yes.
and I speak just from my background of fighting itself.
Correct.
Like,
And you would
sounds
understand
great
100%,
that
yes.
like if I just learn how to grapple, I'll be all right.
Yeah.
But it's a lot harder than it looks.
Yeah.
When
Correct.
someone's throwing full power, kicking you, and
Yeah.
and
And the
you're trying to
difference
grab them,
is
and you don't.
They're just
you're-
ripping out and hitting you
Well,
again.
And you
the
and-
think you
difference
could
is
just pull
if-
guard. It's not that.
No, and if you know how to grapple, you'll be able to handle anyone that doesn't, no problem.
Right.
But there's always
people in the world, and there's some big people in the world too.
correct. But
Speaking
there's
from the small side of the world,
there's a lucky man's punch that
Yeah.
no matter what your experience is, if you land the right punch,
Yeah. It's a
bad
that's
day.
it.
and
Yeah,
it's
that's it.
just like I'm saying with jiu-jitsu and like the idea that training jiu-jitsu, it's more about the benefit that you get
Mm-hmm.
from it. Same with sparring. And I'm not saying that everyone should spar all the time because it's not for everyone.
Right.
Even just for brain health. But everyone, if you really want to know whether you have what it takes self-defense wise, I think you still need to experience some sparring.
Yeah.
Like the actual act with big gloves and feel someone really trying
Get punched
to hit
in the
you.
face
Yeah.
and see how your body
Some people
reacts.
have no idea.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I get at when I do have that just almost like that icky feeling when I watch some people's self-defense stuff. And I'm sure you've experienced this.
And so that's
it's
again,
not to talk
so that's
bad about
why-
anyone.
No,
you know?
trust
Well,
me.
but
Trust
there's
me.
that-
I'll be like one of the first ones to say it. But again, that's why I like, for instance, I knew I was lacking in some areas, and so I started reaching out to these guys. Like, what are you running for seminars? I want to sign up. And so for like the past 2-3 years, I've taken.
That's awesome.
I don't even know how many hours worth of seminars with these guys, and just like humbled myself. And they know I have experience, and a lot of other people there have experience. Some don't. But I go in there just level-headed, just not trying to prove anything, but just like
Just
I
learn,
need to learn,
observe.
ask questions,
Yeah.
and just try and figure it out.
Well, it's really interesting. Like, I'm sure what's more hard for you to see is, you have all the like, spiritual guys who are just like getting touched and people are falling off them, the whole McDojo life stuff. And that is, I'm sure that's not even that bad for you to watch because that's like literally
That's
a
funny.
joke.
Yeah.
But then the people,
love
and
it.
people do take that serious. People are
can't stop
seriously
watching it,
watching
though.
that in the
It cracks me
class.
up.
But
It
then I'm
cracks
sure
me
the thing that's harder to watch is the person who's going like, this is a knife defense. Like
Yeah.
Well, the problem I had when I first started posting some of the self-defense stuff is you would get all the comments of like, well, that would never work. This would
Right.
never happen, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I just don't know how to
articulate
this.
Yeah.
And so like what actually kind of worked in that sense, but also what caused our page to blow up was posting snippets of real fights.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Because one, I know that that's going to draw attention. So from like the social media
Yeah, especially if
world,
it's relevant, right? at the
yes,
time.
people are like, "Oh, that dude just got laid out," and like they're locked in. And then when I explain something, they're like, "That makes sense." And like the moment I started doing that, the amount of comments of like what wouldn't work almost disappeared.
That's
and
cool.
if there was one, I didn't even have to say anything before everyone else
Just
started
like some
kind of like
evidence, right?
chiming in and be like, "Dude, are you like, what are you not watching?" He's explaining for like one specific. Because then the other thing is like I could take the full video and break down just kind of like one moment of the video and just kind of ignore the rest and hyper focus on something, and then we could make another video that now shows like a bigger picture. So like we could always play around with it in that sense, but that allowed us to kind of cut out a lot of the haters and doubt, and then also cause our page to kind of blow up a little bit
Yeah,
from
that's
that
awesome,
as well.
Well, what a great example of taking advice from people, even when they're saying like, you know, a lot of people would say like, I just don't listen to negative comments. Well, I mean, people might have been saying some stuff that helped you, you know, adapt what you were doing.
It kind of threw me for a loop when I first started doing some of this stuff, and because I first started like posting a lot more on TikTok at the time for that stuff, and like I was getting hate left and right, and I actually like just deleted the page. I'm like, I don't want to deal with this. And then when I was like, all right, I'm gonna start doing this again, I just kind of ignored the comments, reposted it again, and then started posting it more on Instagram, because before, like, my Instagram was mostly just either family stuff or training for jiu-jitsu. And at the time, because before COVID, I was competing a ton, so like that's kind of what I was making the page for. And then I was like, I just don't care about competing as much these days. Obviously, right now I do, but for the most part, I was like,
for 2 more weeks.
2 more weeks, I'm locked in. And then after that, I don't know. But I just didn't have that itch anymore. I was like, I just want to put some of this self-defense. So yeah, that was kind of like my way to shut up all the haters at one point and just be like, yeah, well, you can argue all you want, but the videos showing otherwise.
You have great content. You know, I went through and looked at a lot of stuff, and I can tell you put good work into it. Like, you put a lot of effort towards it.
Knock on wood, I'm amazed that we haven't been blocked a little bit more with some of the stuff that we
that you're posting.
It's all.
I don't know the rules.
I just see like some of my friends that post their stuff, and they're always messaging me like, dude, how are you not blocked? I'm like, I don't know.
Stay under the radar.
Yeah, keep it going.
Like,
yeah,
I've had a couple like things that have been flagged, and I'll take them down right away. And like, yep, you're good. And then like a few weeks later, I'll put them back up, and it just because I think it's just
and
kind
that's
of
about
like
showing other people getting hurt and things like that.
So like it's like some of the
like
stuff
violence,
I have to kind of show to an extent, and then others I try because like some of the stuff I post, like
I mean, the internet's a wild place. You do everyone on there, I'm sure.
Yeah, because some of the stuff I see, I'm like, if I were to show you what fully happened, like you would be blown away by what's actually going on out there. So like part of it's like that, and then the other part's like I want other people who live in this la land that this stuff doesn't happen to see that this is happening
every day. And there's tons of it out there, and in a major city, you know, like someone getting out of a cab or
suburbs, schools, cities, like every which way we turn.
And it's not to scare people, but it's just the reality of it. So it's
and that's how I've approached all, like, even if I run a seminar, like I'm not trying to scare you, but I'm gonna wake you up.
Yeah, I don't like the idea of it being like fear driven. Being like, you need to learn this because of this is gonna happen to you, or you know, because the reality is that the odds are in your favor. When it comes to, like, you know, just statistically speaking, you know what I mean? But it's at the same time,
so I said
why wouldn't you want to be able to protect yourself?
When we were
I can't imagine not having that skill set.
100%.
When we were coming back yesterday, my sister lives in the city, and we were just like talking how bad it is out there, and she was like, well, it's not really that bad. I don't see that much. And I just want to say, like, until it is, like you said, like the percentage chances are in your favor. There's tons of people, but when it goes bad, it could be really, really bad.
I just don't understand the argument of not wanting, like, people will be like, oh, I learned how to swim so that I don't drown. It's like, well, do you like to swim? Oh, no, I hate the water. But I did all these lessons to know how not to drown. Like, okay.
Which makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Right?
And then I learned how to drive a car before I drive the car. I'm like, okay, got it. And I carry a gun for self-defense. I'm like, but you won't train how to fight. No. Like, I don't need that.
That's what I got the gun for.
It blows my mind, the people, because again, like when I've taught people and I'm like, all right, you know, give me a jab, and they hit over here. I'm like, whoa, the hell are you looking at? Like, where are you punching towards? And it blows. And again, it's not everyone, but there are some.
But it's like a basic skill.
Everyone should have it.
And not to be a world-class fighter, but a basic skill of how to defend yourself. How to,
you don't have to train as much as we all are.
No.
And again, we're just crazy for training on a daily basis. Like, we love it. That's why we do it. But once a week, a couple times a month, like you do that over time. And fortunately, I had a chunk of women this year when I was running. We had an incident that happened in my suburbs. And so I was running one class a week. And I had a lot of people that would come back. So I would do like 3 or 4 of the same exact seminar, and then I would switch it up a little bit. And I actually had a lot of people coming back throughout the entire summer because, like, we want to continue learning this stuff. And so they've been like, I told them, like, you know, take the holidays off. After the holidays, we'll pick it back up again. But I've had a lot of people that have been like, hey, we want to keep kind of doing these every, like, once a month or something, which, again, that's more than most people will ever train in their life.
Yeah.
So
and just the moderate consistency for them is very important too. You know, having some, you can't just do it once or twice and then think you have the skills to go do it out in the street. You know.
Yeah, that's another issue with like workshops.
Yeah.
And you know, is that someone does something and they get a certificate or something and then
gun disarm.
They're like, I'm done.
No, geez.
That was the other thing. When I first started running the seminars, it was like a blast of information. And so like one of the benefits of training with these other guys is like, how can I take something of how they're teaching it in 14 hours and cut it down to 2? And so I kind of started teaching it in a way that gives you enough to where you can feel like, okay, I actually am capable of doing something, but not enough to where it's like, yeah, I don't need to train ever again. So I kind of leave them that itch of like, I need to keep training.
It's tough to distill the information down to something because it is obviously endless. We can just keep training forever and you'll never feel like it's perfect.
Right.
But you have to have something, and that's the teacher's dilemma is to be able to be a good teacher and quality work.
Constantly has to evolve, constantly have to update, constantly have to change. Like I ran one program again for months to kind of figure it out, and now I've got like one program locked. Like I'll adjust techniques and stuff within it, but like the format it's locked. I'll just kind of rotate how I present it. But it's in a good place right now. So it's one where I'll run this for a while and then I'll switch it up again.
Yeah.
Just kind of like that way you can draw new people, but also give something new to the people that have taken it before.
Yeah, you can evaluate it for yourself too and see what you can do to improve it after that amount of time.
And they're not going to know. Like as long as you play everything off, like it's fine. Like something could completely not go how you wanted it to, and everyone else is like, okay, yeah, got it. And you're like in your head, you're like,
let's change that up.
We're not doing that again.
Yeah, especially with kids. We've done that with kids. Like,
very, very true.
We're not doing that
like,
lesson
hey, great
anymore.
class, man. You're like, yeah, no.
Man, they're all headbutting each other. Remember?
I've done it mid-class before. I was telling them I had them doing that game the other day where they're just trying to touch each other's knees, and I so many times don't hit each other's heads, and then like they were going to pick another partner, and I was like, "What's wrong with your head?" And the kid had like a huge hematoma, and I'm like, "All right, we're done with this game. This is stopping immediately."
Else.
Yeah.
Like, why? We're having fun.
Yeah, he was totally fine. He's like, "Yeah, I think I hit my head." I was like, "Yeah, you definitely did." Yeah.
Mom, we had a great class today.
Look at my head. Yeah. Do you do anything with kids when it comes to teaching?
I used to, not now. I had at the beginning because I just like needed bodies. So like we had some younger kids that joined us, and they stuck with us for a while. Again, like the benefit of it being in my house is I can kind of pick and choose who trains with me. So if
and you have kids, 2 kids?
I don't have any kids.
No kids.
No kids right now. Nice. But we had a few guys that were younger. I had a couple. I think I had like a 10 and a 12-year-old and then like a 13 and 14-year-old. And they were good dudes. They've kind of just gone off to playing other things. They kind of burned out from it. So now if I'm advertising it, and again, I've like right now it's just kind of word of mouth, a little bit of like that underground status. And so if people ask me, where can my kid come or whatever, I'll be like, how old's your kid? Do they have any background with stuff? How big are they?
So you can actually kind of do a questionnaire.
I can kind of do a little bit of a questionnaire. Otherwise, I'm
it's
like,
funny how big are they is almost the most important question.
It is,
right?
Like, because like there's some kids that are like 12, but I'm like, yeah, you can actually roll with some of these guys.
Yeah.
Like you can actually work. And again, like my guys I'll never do a situation where it's just like you and the kid. It'll be like us two, and then he'll just work in with us so that at least we can still kind of do the technique at our level, and then we can help them out. And they love it. But again, like right now, I don't have any kids. If I were to run a place, I would obviously look to try and build some form of a kids program. When I worked at the other studio, I was teaching kids on a daily basis. I'm also kind of burned out. From working with the kids.
I've been doing it for
I understand from like running a perspective. Yeah, like a kids program. Like if you run a gym,
you have to learn to love it.
Yeah,
too.
you got to have a kids program.
You have to have it, and then which means you have to learn to love it.
Yeah, it's got to be
no
fun.
matter what. Because if you're not enjoying it, that is 100%. One of the hardest things to do in all of martial arts is to run a kids program.
If you're showing up stressed, it's going to be bad because they're going to immediately stress you out every day. So you got to be happy already.
Just close your school.
Yeah, I was feeling good till I showed up today. Thanks, Billy.
They'll just suck it out of you.
The same 7 kids every day. Can you tie my belt? You can tie your belt. I've seen you tie your belt. Like, get away from me.
No, we love the kids.
Yep.
We're doing this Saturday coming up. Yep. We're doing a pancake breakfast for the kids. So they have their belt promotion on Thursday, and we're doing we'll do a kids cast.
You look like you have a good sized kids program.
It's
here.
okay. It's not huge. I was in Crystal Lake teaching at Jeff Kearns, and we built that program up to like it was like at least always 60 kids on the mat, 75, 80
awesome.
kids. It was awesome, yeah. So, it's a little smaller here. We're growing it, but
nice.
Big plans for it.
You're getting there.
It's getting its rhythm.
You have kids days you got 30 kids.
And I don't I'm not an expert in marketing or anything like that. I'm not good at any of that stuff. All of ours is word of mouth. Right. Even though we're in a building, I still don't even do marketing or anything. Right. I don't even have a sign.
Sometimes I like the word of mouth better because you'll get people.
It's quality. Yeah.
Because like I'll have like my guys like, hey, can my friends come and try out a class? And it's like people that want to do jiu-jitsu, and it's not like the parents are just like, oh, go do something.
Financially, it's probably not the best model. There's got to be, we want to have more turnover, more new people, but. This is something down the road I know I need to eventually do, but it's definitely more quality people then. Yeah. If they're there for a reason.
And they have like a push already, so their friends pushing them to keep coming, and they're not by themselves. And
a lot of times, like once they take that, they're like, all right, I'll stay.
Yeah.
Is there a goal of yours to have your own school, like a building or?
Yeah, I actually. So it's funny. There's actually one in my town that used to be like a kung fu place, and they just moved locations, and the building's vacant right now.
It's like perfect setup.
I'm like, it is a perfect setup, and it's like they've been there for like one of those places that's been there since the town's existed, like just been there forever, and it's just kind of like an open warehouse, like literally like offices ready, bathrooms are ready, you can just lay mats down, it's good to go.
It's tempting.
I was like. So I actually have a realtor looking into it because my brother-in-law's mom's a realtor, so I'm like, just see what the deal is on it. Is it for lease? Is it for sale? Is it even available? Like, just curious as to what the details are, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Well,
cool.
So
here
like
to
that would be the
opportunities
only
there.
option.
We'll help promote you guys.
I appreciate that. That would be the only one right now. Otherwise,
jump.
I'm not really kind of pushing for it at the moment.
Nice.
I know I'm gonna have to because I'm running out of space. So we're definitely gonna have to.
Well, that was the biggest problem at Tim's was the parking scenario. So we'd have a couple people. We'd have a good amount of people, but it's a house.
Oh yeah,
and
my street is just
like a winter.
And before you know it, people were complaining.
Slide down the hill.
Did not like it.
Well, so like the benefit is like our neighborhood's a big circle, and then there's like an off circle, and we're like the back lot over there.
That
and
helps.
so we're like, if we were like one of the first houses in the entrance, I'm sure we would have been shut down by now.
Right?
Yeah. So that's one benefit. The other benefit is that I have 3 of my neighbors that train with us, including my next door neighbor.
Cool.
So
you
everyone
won over
kind
the
of
crowd.
knows
Just
about
walk
it, yeah,
over.
and everyone kind of knows like a lot of the moms.
That's very smart that you won over the people who would hate you
Yeah.
guys.
And
Just
so,
going
like-
house to house. Hey, do you want to train?
Well,
Hey, do you want
I've
to train?
taught like when I do the
You
women's
don't even have to drive.
self-defense. No,
You
just
walk over.
Just come next door. I've had a lot of the moms and the daughters in the neighborhood train with us as well. So like a lot of people know what we're doing. We don't bother
That's good.
anyone. Like the kids are all super good
That's
about it.
awesome.
And again, like I'm hard on everyone about. I'm like, park here, don't do this, don't do that. I'm like, be respectful. I'm like, this is a neighborhood at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I'm like, if y'all piss my neighbors off, we're not having classes.
Class,
anymore.
yeah.
So again, like the
Closed.
benefit of being able to pick who trains with us. So yeah, I think down the road, maybe this place, depending on the details, we'll wait and see
Awesome,
what they come back. But otherwise, like eventually, but I want something like this where it's just like an open room. I don't want to have to like go in and well, this place is great, but I got to knock down 20
Yeah.
walls.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
I don't want any of that. I
Right.
want like there's a few, and again, I want it to be like this place is literally 5 minutes from my house. The one that I kind of had my eyes on. So like if I move somewhere, I want it to be like 5 to 10 minutes from my house.
Yeah,
That's
the
it.
convenience factor helps.
Yeah. So.
Well, I mean, like this space in general, I saw the space. It was very different. We had a lot of work that we had to do to make it like this, but I saw the layout. That's how I wanted it.
Right.
So, once you have a vision of something, you just got to pursue it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
This is
Pull it into reality.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
So
Well,
again,
I'm
it still
rooting for you.
wouldn't be a full-time thing. Like that's the other part. Is like I would keep
So
it as a side.
you have your family business.
Yes.
You'll have this as a business.
Yeah, so I
You're
would
online.
definitely keep it as a
You'll
side.
be a busy man.
Yeah, and so that's like the other part is like it's not necessarily a discussion of do we have the means to do it. It's more like the time.
Yeah.
and that's like the
And to
biggest
do it
discussion.
the way
Like
that you
obviously,
want.
it's not going to be cheap.
No.
But we know.
But down the road, what you'll see too, and I'm sure you already feel this, but part of your responsibility as like a coach, as a teacher, is to grow it for your
Correct.
for your students.
Right.
So it gives them opportunities to teach, gives them opportunities to grow and
Right.
Actually make a team. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So like you have to take that obligation, that responsibility, which is a financial responsibility.
Right.
It's a loss of sleep responsibility,
Right.
but eventually it'll be big for your friends and your students. And
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean that's the goal. We'll see. Again, I'm not trying to get like into
There's
a
no
massive
rush,
space.
which is
yeah,
nice.
no.
Yeah.
And so like and then the one benefit that I do have is if we go to some place, God forbid it doesn't work out, I can come right back. So
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily losing
No
a
stressing,
full like oh well we're just
Well,
gonna,
it sounds like you're in a good place then.
yeah.
Yeah.
So like I'm holding on as
Unlike
much.
me.
It's a little daisy. It's a
I'm
little
screwed if
daisy
this doesn't
fresh.
work.
We're in.
I'm-
It's a little daisy fresh style right now. But
Yeah, that's
I
good.
dig it. I dig
Yeah,
it.
it's a good vibe. Awesome, man. Well, training wise, everything's been good. Did you ever do MMA? That's what I wanted to
No,
ask you. I assume that you kind of did based on some of the videos I was watching.
No, I've done like a lot of the sparring.
Okay.
I've helped out a lot of guys. When I first started striking, I trained over at Flow.
Okay.
So I
Valley
did,
Flow? Valley Flow?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, no,
Yep.
no, not Valley Flow. Flow and Palatine.
Oh, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Mostly
Yeah, I remember
boxing school. So I didn't really care to box, but they're like, hey, you're a bigger guy. Can you just come and try and hit
Can you
our
come
guys?
punch this guy?
So like it worked on some levels, and then others, I'm like, dude, I just got rocked today. Don't know where that came from.
Not big enough.
Yeah, apparently the size doesn't matter as much.
And you
so-
train with Maximus, right?
Yeah, so I trained at Maximus. So like Rich was my first
yeah.
Thai instructor,
Yeah, Rich is
and
great.
that dude runs a killer program. So like he's been my day one striking instructor. And so like I'll dabble with the sparring. Like I'll definitely ramp it up if people want to ramp it up. If I'm feeling it, I'll pick up the pace a little bit. I have zero desire to just go get punched for fun. Like let's do this for competitions. Like
thank you.
I mean that desire is always there a little bit for me, but I get what
it's
you're
been
saying.
there. Like I've had a lot.
My whole life I wanted to fight. You know,
I dabbled with it.
Joey's feeling it right now.
I know.
Yeah. He's like, this discussion's making it.
But I at the same time, like I have no desire to spar. I used to spar 4 days a week, hard, like a full contact fighting. 4 days a week.
Dude, it takes
since I was about 15 years old until I was, almost 30.
It just takes a beating.
Yeah, it's not good for your body.
I just have no desire to do that anymore.
It's like I have to dabble with it every once in a while. One, to just kind of make sure like what I'm doing. Stay sharp. Make sure it works. Make sure that my body, because like even like not so much with the grappling. Like I can't tell you the last time I ever felt uncomfortable grappling, even if I take like a month off. It may just suck, but I'll never like walk out like, oh, I never want to do this again. But like striking, if you take some time off and you get punched, your body's like, I don't know what this feels like.
Yep.
I definitely, I'll say that Muay Thai training. Like, so I went to Thailand. I did like,
that's a
camp
goal.
and
I
train.
do want to go down there for
and like, man, it will harden your body in ways that like jiu-jitsu will never do. Yeah. Jiu-jitsu is awesome. Jiu-jitsu will make you tough in different ways, but the Thai boxing
that's going to wake your body up.
Man, like your bone, everything hurts.
Beaten on, right?
And like your joints
and
your
you're
shoulders,
using your bones to beat on things.
Exactly,
it's like both ends.
Like so if you've never done any type of striking, like it seems like, oh yeah, it's probably gentle on the body because you're not getting squeezed. It's the impact. It's like little crashes every day.
So like when it came to like the self-defense stuff, and when I had my dad do the session, I had asked him like on the way up there, because I kind of gave him minimal details on purpose because I knew the level that we were about to go into.
We're going to,
I was like, we're going to a seminar. It's
gonna be fun.
I'm like, we're gonna go to a seminar. I'm like, it's gonna be long. It's gonna be.
He's all excited.
Intense.
He's got a Disney hat on.
Oh
he's
yeah, But I asked him like the morning of, I'm like, you ever punch anyone before? He's like, nope. I'm like, have you ever been punched before? He's like, nope. I said, okay.
Things are gonna change today.
Yeah, no worries. And so it was kind of one of those where like part of me was like, oh shit, there goes my dad. He's on the ground. And then the other part of me was like, yes.
Proud of him. Yeah, man.
This is good. And so like day one, he got rocked. And I mean like rocked. And again, it's full contact. Like they're going to let you do it until Craig calls it.
That's wild.
You're like, I popped ribs during the process. Like people get hurt. One girl got super concussed during, which again, it isn't the goal.
No, but
when you're
training,
reality. It's a real life. Yeah. We're using stim guns. You're using, training knives. You're going full contact with the stuff. And again, it could be Joe Schmo off the street against a world-renowned champ. Yeah. So like you don't know who you're partnering up with.
Yeah, me and Joey could go sign up for the thing, and then
you have no idea who you're going to be with.
It would not be a good day for me.
But like by day 2 of that seminar, and
it'd be fun.
Specifically, it was like a complete 360 with him.
Yeah.
Like he was a lot better on his feet. He was throwing good hands. He was able to avoid some of the stuff. And when he did get hit, he like shook it off and kept going. So like that first day was kind of like the wake up. And then by day 2, his body was like, oh yeah, we've been here. And so like that fear was gone.
Can I ask how different is what you did from these like the videos I see now, all the people in the ice? So Ortiz from here, he did one of those like
I think it's what was it called?
I don't even know what you call those.
No, there's a name for it.
Yeah.
It's a program.
It seems like they're doing a Marine boot camp.
Okay.
And just kind of running the guys, ragged.
We're gonna have Ortiz on here and we'll talk about it. But it's a program.
Okay.
But it's more of like a lifestyle program too. It's not just self-defense.
So like the way
it's
like
a big
this
part
training
of it.
like the way Craig's works. So the one that we did was it's called ECQC. So it's like close quarter engagement with. Or no, I did EWO. So it's edge weapons overview. So it's all about just dealing with bladed weapons, close quarters. We'll talk about firearms stuff, and it's essentially how to deal with someone that has a bladed weapon while also trying to get access to my firearm or weapon in the process. Because again, a lot of people think they can just pull it out.
Well, that's a big part of self-defense is understanding whatever you have on you can be taken.
Or just not even access.
If you introduce it to the conversation,
not even access is a good right.
So the whole course again, it's like 10 to 12 hours each day. And it's just a lot of like hand fighting, grappling, working different takedowns, working arm drags, like a lot of stuff that again, as grapplers, you would be like, okay, this is fine. Then you start kind of picking up the intensity a little bit as the day goes on. And then by the end of it, you kind of put everything from that day together and he puts you in like the evolution where again, you're going to be attacked. You don't know when, you don't know how. It's just depending on the circumstances and the scenario that he puts you in, but it is full throttle. And again, you don't know who he kind of just goes based off of size, experience, and how you did that day. And that's kind of how he's going to pair you up with somebody. So you could be 5'0" against a 7-foot giant, and he's like, all right, best of luck to you.
We talk about all the time, you know, it's like weight classes and all that.
Yeah. And
you know,
like
for sport, it makes sense, but then what are you going to do? I mean, I don't get to choose who attacks me.
And the beautiful part,
please, different weight class, sir.
And the beautiful part is depending on where you host it, depends on the training environment. So like if you were to host them here, you have mat space. Other gyms don't. And you'll do 20 hours outside, rain, sleet, or snow. If that's the weather that day, that's what you're training in that day. And you're going full contact on the hard ground.
Yeah.
And so again, it's another element that people aren't used to, where it's like, oh, this is going to happen. And again, he's just like, people that are at like the highest level of stuff and are still getting killed in the process or getting beaten or just like it's kind of just like a reminder, like you could be the best fighter in the world, but if you don't take care of certain elements, it doesn't matter. And so like, it's a very good, like it's super physical in regards to like the physicality. Like anyone, like any of us here that train on a regular basis would be able to deal with the physical portion of it. You'd be tired, but like you would be fine. It's more so dealing with this different types of stress, the different variables that come into play. It just challenges you in a different manner. And again, that's like every seminar that I've taken, and I've just been in love. So I'm trying to take as many of those as I can to kind of just keep up my training, because again, like I'm kind of past the point of sport. Obviously my guys and ladies all want to learn that, so I'm still teaching that, but I'm kind of just, like you guys said, anyone's day. You never know when your day is going to come. So I'm trying to at least keep that stuff rolling and fluid in my head, and make sure.
I do believe it makes you, you know, just more well-rounded as a martial artist. So, you know,
and it just makes you a lot more aware. Like I could care less about fighting somebody in the street. I'm gonna do everything I can to be like, all right, dude, say what you want to say. I'm out.
And that's the biggest conversation to have, especially when we talk about kids. That's why I kind of brought the kids idea in when it comes to self-defense. And you know, there's so many lessons that are just simply like, how do you avoid this scenario? And awareness-wise.
But they need some confidence to be able to do that. You know, it's like it's very hard to be able to do that if you have no.
That the reality, if something happens, you feel comfortable.
Yeah, and like
that'll
Aaron,
give you confidence to say no.
Yeah, Aaron always says it. He's like, those that are really trained in violence get to choose violence. Those that don't resort to it. So like if you don't know what to do, people are like, I'm just gonna punch you, and then you're like, shit.
Yeah, and then you realize you can't punch. It's too late.
But then on the flip side, the problem is that you get people that fight and are just kind of like really aggressive people in general. And when they do get into those situations, it just immediately like locks them into fight mode, and they want to fight. And I actually had someone message me where we were at a fight promotion, and there was someone that was kind of talking smack and whatnot to one of the higher ups at the time, and they kind of got kicked out. And the other person's like, hey, we need a bunch of you to kind of help get this person out of there. So they grabbed me, they grabbed a few others. And I was the only one of like the group of bouncers. Like some of the bouncers didn't even have fight experience. They're just big dudes. Others were like very reputable strikers. That's it. And then I had all the self-defense background. And I had someone message me that says I was there. She was working like the front desk at the time. And she's like, you were so calm. She goes, everyone else, I could just see it in their eyes that they wanted to rip this. They were like ready to rip this guy apart. And she's like, you were so calm and collective. She's like, you were the scariest one to me, because everyone else was just ready to see war. She's like, I knew if something went down that you would be the first to jump in and react properly. She's like, that scared me to death seeing that. But she's like, it made a good point that like people who just train but don't necessarily introduce self-defense elements, such as just the legality of what happens if you punch somebody in the street, don't think about that stuff. And so like there's a lot of variables if you're really learning to self-defense. This is where like the gaps come into play. But like you said, you need to have the confidence. I think sparring is huge. Well, from kids up to adults, you have to spar.
You have to know what it's like.
And you don't have to do all the sparring. Like grappling alone, if you've never grappled and you get, trust me, throw someone that doesn't know what to do and you get a small guy holding you down, you're like, this just sucks.
You thought your anxiety was coming. So you started freaking you out.
Yeah. And that's also, goes back to what we said. It's just, I feel like jiu-jitsu can give you so much, for anyone who's really into self-defense, but still is on the fence about jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu, just the training of it, not about the actual techniques and that you're going to use this stuff every single day for your self-defense, but the training of it is just, there's no other way, because I sparred 4 days a week. I don't think that everyone should do that. No. I had a lot of problems.
Yeah, it's not good for you.
It's just no healthy way to do it. But that would be the only other equivalent. But we can spar 7 days a week. Me and Kyle train 3 times a day, 7 days a week. I mean, that's legitimately, we train every day. you can only do that in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
You can't do that in Muay Thai.
And nothing will like stress you out more than just being like smothered by someone.
So you need that
just
healthy
not being
level
able
of stress.
to move. But it's just a good eye opener, and I encourage everyone, like programs that don't introduce grappling or
some
try
type
to
of ground
ignore
fighting,
grappling or something. I'm like, you guys are just living in a fantasy world, man.
Or live in the past. It's like the evidence is there, and I think back in the 80s there wasn't.
Right.
There wasn't internet. They couldn't just go out and see this. So it was all based on one person who had a louder mouth, their opinion. Whoever said, whoever was
Mike who threw the first punch.
The problem is now is if we're talking like strictly teaching self-defense, is a lot of the traditional schools that have their own programs, like a Hapkido school, for instance, won't bring in outside instructors.
Yeah.
Even if they know it works, just because it kind of go against
it's
what
a business
their
model too. Then
correct. But I actually had someone who's part of like a big chain of schools reach out to me because some of his students actually started training with me and went to him and said, "Hey, you need to bring him in for this stuff." And he reached out to me. He's like, "I'm gonna be honest." He's like, "We don't teach this stuff to the extent that we could," and he's like, "I want you to come in and teach our entire." Instructors, all our black belts, and I was like, "Are you sure about this?"
That's amazing.
And so he's like, "Trust me." He's like, "This isn't like," he's like, "I'm not going to pretend that like what our curriculum works." He goes, "There's a lot of gaps," and even after all that, I still heard from some of their older individuals who've just kind of been doing the traditional martial arts for the longest time, like, yeah, but that would never happen. And they were still kind of in denial after all that. I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to change.
It's hard to accept you're wrong. You know, it's it is for something. It's just really hard sometimes. They've been doing something for 10 years,
But that's where my instructor pushed me because he knew that he didn't have that stuff. And that's why he's like, I want you to learn how to box. Because he's like, our hand stuff isn't like, and you could see the difference in how my hands were just blocking, and I'm not doing these big overhand blocks and stuff. I'm keeping everything a little bit tighter and then adding stuff on the ground, because before, like when we were sparring, if we took someone down and felt like, oh, stop, okay, come back up to your feet, and we never got to experiment on the ground. It's like, well, I want to go wrestle. I need to learn what happens when that happens.
Well, I think that's it's really the selling point of especially the old school MMA. That's what it was. It was just a slow evolution of what works, what doesn't work.
Right.
And that's, it goes everything we're talking about with sparring. There's no other way to find out besides to do it.
Right.
And when it comes to bladed weapons and guns,
and it's hard to practice.
It is such like there is no perfect way to do any of that stuff.
You can't.
Like,
unless you actually did it.
I'm gonna try and minimize it. Like the biggest thing that I will say that I've gotten out of, like, I could do a real fight against someone with a weapon, and I have no doubt I'll get cut, possibly even shot. But I can tell you the one thing that I will be confident in is my ability to stay calm in a situation like that, which is huge, because I have no doubt that when it does,
that's what you have control of. So there's a lot of shit you don't have control of.
And
no
again,
matter
like
what.
everyone knows, like you're gonna get cut, but it's a matter of, are you going to be the one that keeps fighting after that? And are you able to stay calm and consciously like focus on what needs to be done rather than just panicking that someone has a knife on you?
Yeah.
But otherwise, there's
a really great observation about
that.
Well, and knowing that it's going to be a situation, it's like that would be like someone going into an MMA fight and I'm just going to knock this guy out. Like you're going to get hit a bunch. You know, it's like it's most people think they want to be in a fight, but they actually just want to beat somebody up. They don't want to actually be in a fight, which is rugged and dirty, and
That's why I tell people, like, if you're going to carry anything, and I try not to like get into the whole like, do you believe in guns or not guns? I'm like, I don't care if you want to carry whatever it is you want to carry, know how to use it, but know what to do when you can't get to it, which means go fight. And if you learn how to fight, then there's a good chance you also don't need any of that stuff in the first place, because you're going to be smart enough not to be in those situations.
And that's the biggest thing.
And then if you do have a weapon, you're going to know damn well like what to do if it doesn't work, or if you can't get to it, which again goes back to your ability to fight. So I'm like, at the end of the day, learn how to fight first. And then I'm like, if you're going to carry anything simple as pepper spray, learn how to fight. Because what happens if that pepper spray doesn't work? Like, we've tested it. We've got videos coming out of us testing pepper spray and stuff. And like, there's times where like, yeah, that really hit. And other times where it's like, yeah, I'm good. I'm gonna keep coming. I'm gonna keep coming at you. Like, it depends on
the person too,
right?
It
Depends on the person. Depends on the day. Like, we've tested stun guns. I'm like, oh, that hurts. But I think like people have this notion that like if I stun you with like a hand stun gun that you're gonna drop to the ground. It's like, no, I will trust me, I will let go. But it's like that. And then I'm right back on you.
Yep.
It's just a bad sting, but it doesn't. And you're not gonna be able to like sit there and hold it on me because
I'm gonna move.
Yeah, I'm gonna move.
And we have a lot of law enforcement that train with us, a lot of
Right.
different departments, and this is a conversation we have a lot with them.
Yeah.
And they're people who teach the DT and they're officers who are over dependent on those tools. Those, that's all it is, just a tool.
So that's,
but
I guess,
they're
like,
not
if you
prepared.
Yeah,
the
so like when I do the women's stuff, I make sure I emphasize that, and again, not as a manner to scare any of the women that I'm working with, but just kind of give them the realization of like, you can have these tools, and trust me, it could save your life. I have no doubt. Like they function, they do its job. It just depends on who it is that you're doing it to that given day, and is it going to impact them as much as you would like? Because some people, again, are like, you've seen people get tased with like multiple tasers, and they're still like,
terrifying. Or they just wear a jacket.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, we're in winter now.
Yeah.
How much of that stuff is going to apply?
So once you wear a jacket, a lot of those like the distance,
not tasing me through my hoodie and my jeans.
Or a lot of it like means that I have to already be on you for it to work, anyways. Which at that point, I'm just going to hit you. I better
survive. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, at the end of the day, learn how to fight.
Yeah, I mean, go back and just don't have that like over sense of confidence with just having a pepper spray in your pocket.
No. I think that's the biggest downfall to anyone that trains in general is they just assume, again, even someone that's only done jiu-jitsu could be a world-renowned black belt, and they just have the confidence that I can handle any situation, which granted, I'm sure they would do just fine. And the majority of situations, the majority of the situations, But again, as you guys know, like anyone that trains outside of jiu-jitsu or just one specific discipline, even like strikers, anyone that trains just outside of striking and adds grappling, it's like, it's like if you've ever felt someone grab you that knows how to grab you, your striking aren't doing anything. So it goes both ways.
Yeah.
But
I remember just the first time,
then you get kicked in the leg for the first time, and you're like, what? I can't even walk.
I remember the first time like fully mixing them together. Like I had sparred and I had grappled, but then I remember the first time like I was sparring with somebody, and then like I took them down, they took me down, whatever, and we were grappling and I felt fine, but then we stood back up again and started sparring again, like we started striking again, and my cardio just went boo, like immediately. I was like, I don't know where that came from,
just gassed you out. I remember like on the flip side, I remember my brother started training jiu-jitsu. He trains with oh my god, I'm completely blanking. He trains in the city. But I remember vividly, he's like, I'm going to go train. I'm like, awesome. And so it had been like months since I had seen him because he was at school at the time. And when I got back and he grabbed me, and it was the first time that he had finally gotten like the grappler's grip. And he grabbed me and I'm like,
nice. All right.
Like,
he's in.
All right. I'm like, you doing any other workouts? He goes, no, just grab it. I'm like, nice.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it makes such a difference when you learn how to like, when that strength kicks in, I'm like, it's also a scary thing.
Right.
And it's funny too, because I've had my guys mention it where, I'll be like rolling with one of my white belts and I'll be like casually talking to you over here, but I'm like, he's like dying underneath me, and they're like, how are
Kyle's
you saying
famous
so
for
good?
this. Like, Kyle's kind of famous for just rolling with people, and like even on the negative, like you're getting in a full triangle, and Kyle's like, hey man, what are we doing after this? And then just escape, and they'll be like, what happened?
But we had a conversation after that. I'm like, isn't that like the scariest thing in the world, where I could just effortlessly hold you down and have a conversation with someone else in the room, and you're like
panicking,
fighting
to get out.
I'm like, that is the beauty of training something like this, because you can do that to someone who's like freaking out, and you're just like, yeah, dude. So anyways, Thanksgiving was great.
Very special.
Like, but I mean, like I've seen the same thing with striking. Like I've seen guys that'll just sit there and like talk to you.
Max Holloway. Look at Max Holloway.
Oh yeah.
They'll have full conversations while he's in a title fight. Or
not even just to the fighter, but like to the audience members as well. Like, you watching this?
Yeah, crazy, man.
It's like
that's a level of confidence and comfortability that few people even experience that in thing that they do for a living.
Yeah.
Like that level of even you go to a job for 30 years, you're still like, you can't also do other things while you're doing it.
Hold on, let me finish this.
Did you ever see the Floyd Mayweather one?
What's that?
Floyd was in the middle of a fight, and the announcers were discussing the Super Bowl, and he heard him. So then he said we thought he was going to win, and they were like, "Did he just say?" So then they asked him like another question. He like answered him again. He
placed the bet.
I mean, in like a 1 million person arena to be able to like be that aware.
There is the beauty of like when you become that. But again, that's what as an instructor blows my mind when people don't want to train. And it's just like, you realize like just how much benefit that has
for everything,
and like how calm you can be in situations.
Yeah, that's a level. It's all I've ever wanted my whole life since I was a kid. The first time I watched Ninja Turtles, I knew I was going to be a fighter.
Yeah,
I wanted
Power
to be
Rangers,
a ninja.
Ninja Turtles, like I'm in.
So since I was like a little kid, that's all I wanted. So it's like I get it. But then I see, and there's plenty of kids in the world that I can see like their parents are making them come to something like this, and I don't know what it is, but there's got to be something that clicks for someone. And a lot of the time it is that first low level of success.
Right. Dude, I had a kid
for the crazy people, it's the level of when it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of what I like too, is like, man, I suck at this. I want to get better. But
I had a kid, this was like a few months into I started running the jiu. So we're finishing up year 2 now of like me running like full classes. So it was like right into year 1, like 3 or 4 months into training, this kid all of a sudden starts cheering. I'm like, what happened? He says, got my first submission, ankle lock. I'm like,
ankle lock.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Atta boy.
To the dark
dude,
side.
like straight ankle lock. I'm like, dude, you're in. I'm like, you're locked in now.
Yeah, I mean that level
ecstatic.
of joy. Yeah, I mean I'm sure he'll never forget it.
No.
And so that's beautiful. And that's like the thing that at jiu-jitsu, it's very, you can do that. Again, like you don't want to have your first moment be a knockout, right?
Yep.
Like at someone else's expense. That person now life might be
Like,
changed.
I don't know when he's gonna wake up. But I
did.
I did that.
Did either of you guys have that experience? Like it took you a long time to submit somebody?
Probably. I don't think my jiu-jitsu really started.
We talked about this, didn't we? I think we talked about this. I don't
mean,
remember my first. I don't
remember my first submission,
don't.
but I know my jiu-jitsu. For me, I felt like I kind of got into like a tunnel vision where I was doing the same stuff.
Yeah.
Every bit. I would avoid tough rules for a long time.
Okay.
Purple belt is when I kind of really started kind of coming into it. I think brown belt for me was the best. Fortunately, it was like right as COVID hit, I got my brown belt. And so like with no competition, it was like, well now, because my problem was I was competing constantly. So I wasn't really learning.
Yeah,
I was just doing. And so brown belt, I think for me was like the most growth that I had. And a lot of it was just on me. A lot of it was just like me not wanting to push myself over the years and stuff and kind of just be comfortable. But brown belt was like, well, I got nothing else to do. And so brown belt for me was like my biggest growth period of where and so like that to me was like where I had a lot of those aha moments.
Okay.
Because I was hitting stuff that I had been trying either for years or just had never been able to hit.
Well, that says a lot about just sticking around too.
Yeah.
Right? If you're waiting for that moment in the first week,
it's not good. And I tell them, like, I've had people that are frustrated. I'm like, dude, just give it a few months, man.
Yeah.
I'm like, he's like, well, you're not really telling me what to, I'm like, there's nothing for me to correct on you right now. I'm like,
and that's I'm a big advocate.
We just had that conversation about that. Yeah, about like people are just always asking you, and they think some words you're gonna say is gonna like
change
boost them up. And
I'm
it's
like,
I told you all of it. Promise.
Yeah, I'm like, you're still getting gassed out. He goes, yeah. I'm like, focus on that for now.
Yeah.
I'm like, once you're calm and collective, then I can teach you.
Yeah,
but like right now, you
got
to kind of get all that stuff out of you. I'm like, just.
And I just want to advocate for like a little bit more enjoyment with the process.
You have to have fun with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a rough thing if you don't.
The reason I asked you guys that was just like such a surprising moment for me. Like you said, the person saying they trained for like a year or two and they got their first submission. That would have been really hard for me to stick around. I remember
Think so?
Remember Naveen, who we had the student Naveen,
we love Naveen,
and he trained for like a year, almost 2, and then there was a competition going. He asked me about it. I talked him into doing it, and then we were training a bunch. And then like I remember a week before the competition, he goes, "Kyle, I'm very nervous about this competition." And I was like, "Why?" And he goes, "Well, I've never made somebody tap out." And I was like, "Oh no!" like, and then he went. I think he won like 2 matches or something. It was really good. But I remember being like,
submission?
Oh, I don't think he submitted anybody, but I just remember thinking to myself like, I can't imagine training that long and never
not knowing if it works.
Yeah.
You never really had a success story.
So I mean that's really
Funny
cool to
story
hear
about
that people
Naveen,
struggle through.
one.
This is amazing.
Naveen, when he started training jiu-jitsu, he came in, he's a brand new white belt. And the first day he walked in, I don't know if it was the first day, but he came in and he had a black belt on. So I was like, oh, who's this new black belt guy? So I was like, hey, where have you trained? He's like, no, it's my first place. I was like, huh. Like, how'd you get your black belt? He's like, well, I liked the color black more than white, so I bought a black belt. he's like, I thought it looked cooler with my black gi. I was like, I don't know how to break this.
We literally had a dude.
I was like, you can't wear that. Sorry.
Yeah.
The first place I trained at, the dude showed up in a white belt. Week later, he was in a black belt, and Mike was like,
"Hey, where'd you get that?
What are you doing, dude?" He's like, well, he's got a white gi and a white belt. He's got a blue gi and a blue belt.
Exactly.
I got a black gi, so I got a black belt.
Naveen, you're not alone.
That's good. That's good to hear.
The same thing. It's like they thought it was legitimately just a style choice.
Yeah. So we're like, all right, cool.
Oh, it's fun.
No, I mean, just not aware of martial arts, right?
He ended
you
up
just
giving us the belt. He's like, you can have it.
I love it.
It's not mine.
I think like the best moment, Cash. So the guy that you see in all our videos, if you watch him, when he had his first tournament, like the one thing I emphasized with all the guys was one, have fun. I'm like, none of you are out here for the world championships. I'm like, have fun. Like I'll have fun after Worlds. Right now, I'm kind of zoned in. But I was like, I'm like, go have fun at the tournament. I'm like, it means nothing. Just have fun with it. But I was like, what I want you to do, and it's something that I've always personally taken pride in, and so I kind of like tried to pass it on to them. I'm like, I want to make sure that even if you lose, that person is dead tired. I'm like, I want you to make it just suck for them. So when they walk out, like, man, I barely won that match. And I was like, just don't quit. I'm like, that's the only thing I asked for is just do not give up on the mat. And Cash was going for third and fourth. Because it was like the round robin or whatever. So I'm like, all right, let's at least leave with a medal. And he was losing. And I was actually kind of like, I almost kind of like stopped coaching for a little bit because I'm like, you're down on points, you're in a bad spot. There's less than 10 seconds left. I'm like, dude, you got nothing left. And I'm like, Cash, just keep fighting, man. And all of a sudden, like, he shifted his hips from moment. I'm like, Cash, there's an armbar right there. And he threw it in, like, Hail Mary armbar. 0.01 on the clock. Guy tapped and like he was ecstatic, and I was like the happiest moment. I'm like, that's why you don't quit, dude. I was like, that was awesome.
Great coaching moment.
Yeah,
and I'm like, and I told him after, I'm like, Cash, I'll be honest, dude. I was like, I stopped recording.
I walked away.
I'm like, I stopped coaching you for a little bit. I'm like, no offense, dude. I was like, you were down like 10 points with 10 seconds left, and you were just like gassed out. He's like, I know. I'm like, it wasn't that I was doubting you. I was like, I just kind of like looked at the situation. I'm like, they're just, unless there's a Hail Mary and like, oh shit, there it is.
Pull it out of the depths.
But I was like, I'm like, part of me doubted it for a second.
Man.
Yeah. So like that was, so now from like a coaching perspective, it's cool. And that's kind of also why I don't want to compete right now. Cause it's like, they're getting the itch for it. And so like, I remember Mike always being in my corner. And so like now me being in their corner, like it's cool.
But I'll tell you that they'll respect you for what you're putting yourself through right now.
Well, that's,
when
it
comes to hard training, you're consistent. You know, like it's just, I mean, honestly, there's no other way to say it, but you earn people's respect by what you do,
right?
Not by just you telling them or just sitting in
and
the
that was
chair.
kind of part of it. Is they're like, hey, you know, can you compete with us?
And it's not to talk shit about people who don't compete because there's plenty of great coaches who don't compete. 100%. But at the same time, it's hard for me to respect them completely because I would like to know that they know what I'm feeling right now.
Yeah.
You know,
it's like, trust me, man, you'll be fine.
You've never been there,
but you've never competed, dude. How are you supposed to know?
Yeah.
And so I told him,
I'll always respect, you know, my coach Jeff. From an MMA standpoint, he's done everything. He was a pioneer of the sport in this area.
He's still out there competing in jiu-jitsu.
It's like Mark. You know,
yeah. So you got to respect. Even
Mike was a good coach about it because obviously, you know, Mike's been around. He's competed plenty of times, but it got to the point where like when I started doing pants and worlds, even he was like, "Dude, go train with Mark."
Yeah.
He's like, because that's a different level. He's like, he's gonna push you differently than and not to say Mike wouldn't been like. He's always been there for me. Anytime I've needed training partners, whatever.
He's a really great guy. I don't know him that well, but we've always talked. Whenever I saw him, we've always talked about stuff. He like refs some matches.
Yeah. Phenomenal ref. Like he's been around. Like again, he's just one of those guys that like you can always count on. But he's like, if you're looking to compete at that level, Mark is there every weekend. He's like, go to Mark. I'm like, all right. And so like I started training those with Mark, and so like just having like that guidance from someone like you said that not only walks the walk, but like is there, or sorry, not only talking the talk, but like he's there doing it, and he's like, hey, you want to be at this level? He's like, this is how I get there. Yeah. He's like, okay. And it's like, if you want to do it, then show up, do it with me.
So you know that's what you're doing for your students.
Yeah,
so,
and so that was like part of it.
Hopefully you can keep that in your mind coming next week too. And that's what I try to do when I compete.
When you're struggling.
I've told my guys this. I'm like, look, I could lose the first match. I'm like, it's worlds,
but still
it doesn't matter if it's adult, Masters 4. I'm like,
and then once again, you're actually living. You're living what you tell your students, which is, I'm having fun.
Yeah,
I'm not going to quit. I'm going to make this person dead tired.
I may lose, but trust me, they're going to lose as well. Yeah. They're going to feel it the next match. So I was like,
so you have to really
show up for it,
and you have to really embrace what you say to people.
Yeah,
because you might lose that match, and how do you hold yourself? Do you like whine about it?
No class this week.
Yeah, like, I'm in bad mood. I'm not going to teach now.
Everyone cheated.
Yeah. Well, so that's like the other thing is like I feel bad because like some of the days like I'm canceling like certain nights like no class. I'm like, no, I need to train. Like and they're like, okay, got it. Like and they're like completely understanding of it compared to like, what are you doing? So I was like, you know,
and it will all be worth. There'll be a time when it's all worth it. Yeah. You know. So.
No, so like I said, it's a good group. I'm happy to kind of be in the position I am with them. I'm happy with like the online position I'm in right now, especially because that's just opened up a lot of other doors, or like people reaching out asking for opinions, or like getting people to start training and stuff. I've had tons of people reach out like. That's awesome. You know, where can we train for jiu-jitsu? Where can we do this? Like just putting them in like context of like, I'll find a decent place and be like, hey, here's a guy that I know, or here's someone I've talked to. Like, here's a good place. Like just trying to use that platform for like you ask people nowadays, no one's like, Ninja Turtles or Power Rangers. Like anyone our age, if you said, hey, why did you start training martial arts? The Green Ranger. Why else?
Yeah.
You know? Nowadays, it's like, I
they saw UFC on TV.
Yeah. Like,
I don't know if you know, we trained with the Green Power Ranger.
We actually did. Yeah. Jason David Frank.
He's a cool dude.
He was awesome.
I
man.
met him.
Rest in peace.
He's a super cool dude.
Yeah, we got to train with him, spar with him.
He kicked me in the head.
Yeah, he kicked him in the head.
But then he pulled his hamstring doing it. So then I was like, all right, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be all right. I'm going to live through this.
Yeah, it was awesome, man. Great guy.
Yeah.
Well, let's. I appreciate you coming on the podcast, man. I don't know how we linked up, but I'm glad we did. And I'm super happy.
Meeting each other on the internet.
It's crazy, man. What a world. But we're super happy for you that your success with everything you're doing, and our goal is to get you a good training session.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Really excited to roll with you
all today.
We're really excited to just keep following you online and stuff. We're gonna keep we're gonna try to copy you as much as possible. We want to take as many tips and stuff as we can.
Yeah, whatever you're doing, I gotta learn because I have Jay. He's helping me with some videos. We don't know what the hell we're doing. Jay's
happy to help.
We don't know how to edit anything.
Trust me, it's
like this machine.
Constant learning.
It's doing it for me.
I give you all props for this stuff. I've debated it, and then I looked into it. I was like, nope.
Yeah, I mean, the podcast, for me, the big thing with the podcast is actually to help me get more comfortable talking to. Because I'm great in teaching in person. I love talking. But when I put a camera in front of me,
that's my problem.
I get a little weirded out.
That's my problem. Yeah. I can run a seminar, no problem. I can talk for hours. But it's like, all right, 1, 2, 3, action. I'm like,
what I'll tell you again, I'll compliment you. You do a really great job.
Very
professional. I would have guessed that you've done this for a long time. I should just do a video of
all the outtakes that we have in the back of just me yelling, throwing stuff. Just be like, let's do it again. Yeah. But I appreciate it. Yeah, come on,
do it live. You write it, I'll do it.
The two kids are crying in the back. That's them waiting. Wipe your eyes. Wipe your eyes.
Have fun. Cash. We're having fun. That's awesome.
Smile. Yeah.
Well, it's funny that real quick. The first time, I don't know how aware of you all are of YouTube, like Hard to Hurt, the YouTube channel.
Sure.
He's Icy Mike. One of the pioneers for self-defense on YouTube.
Okay.
And so when I was doing a seminar with Aaron, he's like, oh, hey, we're waiting for Mike to show up to hold the camera or whatever. I'm like, okay, cool. And I thought he was talking about his teammate Mike, not Mike.
Okay.
And I'm starstruck with Mike. And so
all of a
sudden Mike shows up.
Online?
He's like, hey, and this guy just is in character.
Yeah.
Part of it's his personality, part of it's his character, but he's on all the time.
Well, that was Jason David Frank too.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was on at all times.
Yeah. So he shows up. He's like, all right, I'm ready to go. And he's like, all right, Dave, do your intro. 1, 2, 3, we're live. And I'm just like, he's like, Dave, talk. I'm like, Mike, you're holding the camera. My camera, filming me, and I'm a fan of you. And then he turns the camera and he starts talking. So he kind of got it out of me a little bit. And we just happened to click, and we've done a chunk of videos. We got some more coming up soon.
That's awesome.
But through him, I met Shane Faison. So I'm
Shane's
trying to do some stuff.
I don't remember what his show is or what his
Fight Tips.
Fight Tips.
Yeah,
Fight Tips.
And he's
awesome.
the godfather of
I'll
martial arts
tell you.
YouTube.
Yeah, he really he grew so much.
So I'm actually looking to meet up with him next year to do some content with him. So
I like to roll with him. Does he do jiu-jitsu?
I think so. He does everything. Yeah.
I want to roll with him.
Yeah, I want to strike.
He's smooth, right?
Dude, his striking is on a different level.
Yeah,
his.
So again, I'd rather roll with him.
Yeah, I know your strike is good. Let's roll.
Let's just roll.
Put it in my favor.
Well, I'll tell you, I feel like, man, you're right there with those guys.
I appreciate
you have a very good voice, very good delivery with what you're doing. Just keep it up.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. So
we'll try. Well, me and Kyle will try, but we're more in the funny content.
I've been watching this stuff. It's been fun.
Awesome.
Thank you, man. Well, let's get into training. Man.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
In the opposite direction.
Yeah, we usually keep it rolling to the conversation, but we're going to go from conversation to the mat. So thanks for joining us, and we will keep it rolling. Thank you.